Think about this, 100 years. If you think about 100 years, that takes you back well before the internet, right? Before TV. I think you're getting to the point when record players were like still cool and new, remember? Okay. So just in this room with Clearday, our company, you have 100 years of experience dealing with dementia. Okay?
I've had a lot of facelifts.
I'm not saying who has how many, that's for sure. That's just here. We have around the country about 80 professionals who focus on dementia. My name's Jim, and I'm the CEO of Clearday. And the reason we're here is because we want to bring out the awareness of brain issues. June is the kickoff month because I gotta make sure I get the government acronym correctly, the National Office of Disease Protection and Healthcare Awareness said June is Brain Awareness Day. Month. And I thought it'd be a great time to start these little programs. We are going to do them down in Florida where we have a residential care community. And our footprint as a company is going to get much bigger. And the intention here is I hope y'all learn things. And y'all will go home and tell more family members. Most of you have somebody staying with us, working with us every day. And we appreciate your support. We appreciate your business. We want to make this place somewhere where your loved ones come, they miss us. That's what we want. Because that's what this should be for. These are adult day health centers. And we want people to enjoy themselves. But you, as family members, know they're safe. And they're with good people who are well-trained and experienced. So I'd like to address the 30 years of 100. She started when she was 14. Okay? And so Kristen Hemmons is our speaker today. Kristen's undergraduate education is a wonderful place called University of Virginia. She's a therapist trained at the University of North Carolina. She's been a physical therapist for decades, dementia certified, practitioner, trainer, the whole business, and we hope you'll enjoy her tonight as she takes you through an adventure so you kind of get a feel of where dementia is and where you'll be involved with and how we can help you. Kristen?
All right. Thank you, Jim. So, as Jim said, I'm a physical therapist, and I've worked primarily in more geriatric populations, like hospitals and rehab and skilled nursing and things. So, when you're working with an older population, you, by chance, have a lot of crossover with people with dementia. So, that's kind of the background, interest, and experience. And since working with Clearday, I've done a lot of dementia training, as we all have. My favorite is with a trainer called Teepa Snow. I don't know, have any of you ever looked her up? Does that sound familiar at all?
I haven't watched her stuff. I've been told to by lots of people.
She is wonderful, and she has a really unique training program. And so a lot of the things that I work with family members on are a lot of her ideas and theories. And she was an occupational therapist. I mean, I guess she still is, but oh, sure. Her yeah, and anybody else, anybody.
Start throwing the food at you.
So, what her focus as a therapist, you tend to look at not what's wrong with people. Of course, you have to know, like, oh yes, this person has a broken hip, but you want to know, hey, what can I help them do, like to be as strong as possible, as functional as possible? And from that perspective, she based all of her training and theory of dementia care. Sorry, Jim's talking loud in the back. So when you look at people's abilities and how to support them, no matter what disease process is going on, that's her focus. And she is hilarious. She cusses. She does acts. She like messes with people. It's so she's super insightful and also just a very entertaining speaker. So anytime, if you have some kind of issue or question, you can call us, but you can also probably look up a funny video that she's done. And they're not, and I'm not saying they're very serious, but she has a great sense of humor and a great way of interacting and looking at function. And so a lot of the things that we're going to talk about and try are related to a lot of the training that I've done with her, as well as just general knowledge of interacting with lots and lots of people with dementia and what we can do as people with dementia, people that are supporting someone with dementia, people that work with dementia, and so on.
Her name again? So that
Oh, yeah, I should have said that. You spell it T-E-E-P-A. I don't know what that...
T-E-E?
P-A, yeah, it's a strange name. Snow, S-N-O-W.com. So, yeah, they're definitely, I know everybody has so much downtime, they're definitely worth watching, but if you are just, looking for an answer to a specific question, do that. And also, let's give you a handout on the way out. We have sort of a helpline. It's a help email, so it's help@myclearday.com that we have recently started for family members, friends, anybody. There are lots and lots of questions. So we'll get into kind of the way that I like to address the process of dementia. And there's all kind of talks that say, this is how many people have this, and this is what that one is, and this is how many people are going to get this kind. But we're not going to talk so much about that. We have a handout that has the answers to those things if you need to know them. But what the main thing I think that we all need to know is that this is a process in the brain where there is a disease process going on. Same as if you have arthritis in your hip or you have atherosclerosis in your heart, you have a problem going on in your brain, and it is a very, very important part of the body. And we primarily think of it as a memory disease, right? Like in the beginning of things, people think, oh, so-and-so has Alzheimer's, they've got memory problems. And so the way we want to talk about it instead is like that's one portion, but memory is like one little thing right here in the brain. The brain takes up the whole skull and it runs every single aspect of your life, right? So we think about memory as one thing. I mean, what else does the brain do? It does movement, what I'm doing right now, talking, seeing, temperature, sleeping, waking, fighting infection, running your heart rate. I mean, endless things, emotions, crying, laughing. It takes care of everything, and it's an amazing, amazing machine, right? It's like, well, when you start out, I think it's around 300 billion neurons, which is kind of a lot. And they all talk to each other and they run everything. So you guys watching me, your brain, this part is working right now. And then the part that's remembering and the part that's processing speech is over here, and all of those aspects. So when we want to look at the whole picture of what's happening, we want to know what's happening for the person with dementia, right? So that we can be a better support and a better family member, partner, support system. So we're going to talk a lot today about specific things that happen in the brain that are very common, and it doesn't matter what kind of dementia, there's all different kinds. The thing that's common is it's progressive, so it keeps going along and affecting more parts. So you've got, different problems going along. It's the problems that you see people having have to do with where in the brain the problem is. You could say it's like an infection or a virus. It's, different things, but there's an area that's getting damaged. So whichever area is getting damaged is the part that's going to give them trouble. So what it's kind of helpful for all of us is to know, hey, this is why they're doing that. They're having trouble with this aspect or with this aspect. Then we can think, hey, what can we do to make that thing that's troubling easier for that person? Of course, that makes it easier for the person who's a caregiver as well. So the only thing that we can do really to make the disease better is to learn how to support the person in the areas that they're having weaknesses. So let's talk a little bit about the brain and what's going on. So you can have, the plaques and tangles, and you can have neuronal death and little areas of inflammation and all of these things. But the bottom line is it's interrupting certain circuits that are going in the brain. And so I like to think about it like this. So everybody recognize this problem? Okay, so it's just like this in the sense of if you've got an area with damage, at first it's going to just be, maybe a little bit, it's a minor interruption. Maybe, you might not notice, but the person might be not even noticing, but having a little more, I've got to write things down now, or I've got to set my reminder. As it goes, you start having glitches, and sometimes you have to put it in a certain position, sometimes you have to tape it, and so on and so on. So if we think about the glitches in the brain being a little bit like that, so there's damage in the connections. Sometimes the connections meet. It has to do with the chemicals in the brain. Sometimes there's a higher release of certain neurotransmitters, and you get the signal, because you're like, some days they're fine and they say this, and some days it's like they don't remember that. I just told them. Anyway, it's because this thing, it's exactly like that. Sometimes it connects if you get the right setting. So if we're looking at that as the disease process and certain areas are damaged, then we're going to focus on certain areas and what they mean. Okay, Marcus has put this photo up, and so this is a PET scan, which is basically, it's just a scan that measures activity. And we're not like being super technical about exactly what area and what it's measuring, but it's measuring like electrical activity. And electrical activity is what's going on, and that's what's making all the thoughts and the motions and everything else. So if we're looking at when we all start out before, we get any older, so maybe like high school or something, so you can see all of the red, all of that activity. And as some of these connections start shorting out or getting, like basically inflammation around them, and the circuits aren't working as well, you get some milder impairment, so there's less red, right? And the other thing that you see happening is as some of those cells die, the actual mass is getting smaller, and this middle part is fluid. That's like where you have cerebrospinal fluid, like if they do a spinal tap and they check what's going on in there, because it's getting bigger because the parts of the brain are shrinking. And so farther along, you're getting less red, and just everything's getting smaller. So it's kind of like the person's still the same person, but it's like you're going backwards with your phone. Like if you had an 8 and you were trying to put a really new program on and it doesn't have enough space. So it's like their computer is losing space. So some tasks that used to be very easy and nothing to it, as it goes along, the processing power is smaller. It's like you're going backwards to an older phone, or when you pick up somebody's and you're like, you can't do this on your phone, It's sort of the same thing. They're having problems in areas because their processing power is declining. So what I always think of, and we'll come back to this, is anybody that knows, whether you're a friend, a family member, going to church with, going to work with, if you know somebody that this process is happening to, it helps to think about what can we do to replace like the red part that they're missing. So as opposed to thinking like, why are they doing that? That's so difficult, or that's so crazy, or like, I just don't understand, they're being stubborn, or this, that, and the other. We'll talk more about those individually, but the reason is not that they are, it's just that they can't. So there are so many things when you lose that computer power that you can't do, or you could do it, but it might take a long time, or you might need somebody to start it for you, or you might need somebody to cue it while you're doing it, or you might need any type of like minor support in the beginning, and then it becomes a little more and a little more. And if you just understand that process and just the loss of red and computing power, then I think that's like a great way to think, especially too when what you have to do to help the person changes. Like one day you're doing this much, the next day, wow, now I feel like I have to check on this and I have to check on that, because it is a progressive situation. So that's sort of the basic of the whole brain disease and the whole progression component. Some of the things that we're going to talk about are about specific areas of the brain, and it's all organized in different parts of the brain. I don't know, has anybody taken like physiology or anatomy? Look at 1, 2, anyone else? Okay, I don't want to like get either too technical or not technical enough. Different parts of the brain do different things. I mean, it all works together. It's not like one part is this. Like you have the part where you see communicates with the part where you look at memories and process and all kind of things. But if the damage is in a certain part, you're going to have certain problems, and so it helps to know what those problems are that are common to all types of brain disease. So we'll talk about a few of those, and it's not a straight progression for everybody. It's always different, it's always asymmetrical, and it always changes. So, it's not like, okay, you broke your leg, this is what's gonna happen. It's like you've got a brain disease process, and there's different things that are gonna happen, and different things for each person. But there are a lot of commonalities, and so we're gonna talk about some of the ones that are kind of easy to see once you think about them, and then sort of easier to deal with in the sense of you can say, oh, I see why they're doing that. Now I can do this. And that's sort of, the goal for all of us as we work with all of our members and residents and family members. So the first one we're going to talk about is vision, and that's a big part of the back of the brain. Your eyes see right here, but it all gets processed back there. And so as we think about like our processing capacity going lower, it's not that your eyes are going bad, but back here is going bad, and you can't process as much information. Like if you're looking at it one page, that's easy, but if there's lots of movement in the environment or cars, like a 6-lane highway, it's a different level of processing, right? So as that brain has difficulty in the back, this is something that I never knew. I was never taught this in school, but it's super helpful. The vision field, which is everything that you can see that way, gets smaller, and not just with dementia, but with age. So if anybody in this room is older than about 40, you could probably have a little bit of these changes starting, like Linda's blocking her eyes back there. So what we're going to do is a couple of sort of demonstration, participation things so y'all can see what I'm talking about. So the field, meaning everything that you can see, is the visual field. And when you everybody put your hands out like this and wiggle your fingers. And if you look straight ahead, just look at like straight ahead, can you see your fingers moving? A little bit? You're aware of it, right? You can't like get all the details. Okay, so that's like 180 degrees. So you can see your field is good. So she just says, I can't see him up there, which I agree. And if you go like this, if you put him right here and you're looking ahead, can you see him?
Nope.
Not really. So after 40 or 50 or so, naturally, even if you don't have dementia, it comes in. So you're losing some of your peripheral vision. So if you have a circle now that's this big, what does it cut out? 20%. Yeah, and stuff on the floor, right? So if I'm walking along and I'm talking or doing something else or trying to remember something, it's mostly distracted, and there's like a dog or a suitcase or, a rock or something, I might not see it. So that's one of the issues with the minimal start of the visual changes. Now, when you start to get dementia, it comes in about here. So everybody come in here. Now make a circle and look at the size of that circle. It's not so big, right? So if you put your hands like this, like a scuba mask, and make them meet, make your fingers meet on top. I know we all have glasses, it's hard. Okay, so now just kind of look around. So if your keys were right there and you weren't aware that you had this problem, you'd be like, where are my keys? Somebody took my keys. You might not see a car coming. You might not see a person that's coming. One thing that you notice a lot, like if you're working with people in more of an institutional setting, if you come up behind them and pass them, they don't see you coming. They don't even pay attention to you. Like if I walked, right past you, you would go, hey, but you could walk right past them, and until you're way up there and get into their circle, then they don't see you. So it can have a lot to do with, you can startle people easily. If you come up behind them, they don't know you're there. So one of the big things that we talk about with the vision problem, and we're going to narrow it a little bit more in a second, is approaching from the front and actually making people aware that you're approaching, especially the farther along it goes and the more narrow the vision gets. You can, if you can't get around them without startling them, maybe say their name from the side or get out there and approach that way especially if it's like if you're somewhere in public, just to try and get visual attention before trying to reach out and touch or telling them something. They're not going to hear you because they aren't focusing on you. Same thing with, with hearing. If you don't get their attention first, they're going to miss, the content of what you said. As an aside, the processing of the auditory information also declines, and you start missing words. So I can't do it, but Tifa Snow can do it, where she says every 4 words. And it's like, huh? Because if you miss a quarter of your content, you're not going to be able to give the right answer or, do the right thing, like stop doing this or, whatever you're asking the person to do or tell you. So being aware of those slower processing. Also, upon hearing, they need longer, up to 90 seconds as things progress to really respond. So it's not that they are ignoring you, it's just that they are working on it. So we need to give people more time.
We go through that, that's a bingo.
So again, like it would be like if you've got that old phone and you're like, why? I'm like, I want instant. But it's still processing. Okay, so it's just going to take, so if we are just aware of that one thing, they don't see me or they don't hear me or it's taking longer, that's a huge amount of improvement in your interaction. You're giving them time, and then that gives you like less frustration because they're not ignoring you, they're just doing the best they can. Okay, let's do the next step of the vision. So at the table there are those little binocular things. One person at the table can put them on. Do you want me to grab you? Okay. Okay, if you don't want to put them on and because you have glasses, you can make binoculars. All right. And then what you want to do is, okay, look for your purse. Or what about like if you still have your lunch? Where's your plate? Anybody? Can you see your plate? Like, no, not really. Would you have to turn your head this far to find your plate? So if somebody's like having trouble eating, or they're like picking at their food, or missing, or making a mess, they might not see it. They might be entering into this this portion. The other thing is everybody with their binoculars stand up. Well, you can get up and then put your binoculars on. Nice. That kind of goes with your shirt. And then walk around your chair.
Walk around your chair.
Everybody? Anyone? Try it. So what was hard about it?
Knowing where it was.
Keeping your balance, knowing where it was. Anything? So obviously we are doing a mocking up, doing a mimicry of a problem somebody's having. It won't be exactly like that, but if that gives you kind of an idea of, as their brain is struggling in that area, they may be having things going on like that for them that you're not even aware of. So what is something, like if somebody could only see this much, what could you do to help? Anyone? Can anyone think of anything?
Get right in front of them.
Right in front of them, or like in their range. Like if you just have she looks cute. I gotta get you on the film. If you just have like a little circle of vision, you want to put things where they see them. Like if they have, things that are on the bottom shelf, they're never going to see that. If they've got things way up there, they're not going to see it. If there's something that they're always losing, keep it, and just be aware of it, right? Don't leave things in the hallway or things on the stairs that somebody could trip on if they're not going to see it. And just be aware, like they might not be able to see it. If they can't find something, then what's the natural assumption? You stole it, or somebody stole it, right? So your brain fills in. It doesn't like blank spots. And so if we're talking about memories, we kind of haven't done the exact memory. Anyway, this part over here, when you are doing something, it goes into your brain, you experience it, and then it records it and puts it in the little file drawer right there. So you have to get all the wires to work to get it out of the file drawer to remember it. So let's just say that right now, nobody recorded anything that happened so far. You'd be like, well, when are we going to eat dinner? You know, or, well, you know, let's go to lunch. You know, you're not recording things in real time. You're not recording everything happens. So think about how hard your day would be if you couldn't do that. So you would maybe be disorganized. You would maybe need like a little bit of guidance on when to do things. Would you need to be corrected when you got it wrong?
No.
Anyone?
The problem is when it continuously, I call it you're in that gerbil,
Gerbil wheel.
yeah, the gerbil wheel. You can't get out of it because no matter how many times, it's the same question. And it's like, okay,
So
answer it and move on.
we're gonna, yes, that's exactly right. So we're gonna talk about all of those issues. We may also need to do a couple more sessions, which we're already planning, but we're gonna look at first why, not what do I do yet, but the first thing that you can do is to understand why that's happening. It's much less annoying if you know that they're doing it because something is short-circuiting, right? So,
Much less annoying. Oh, that's fine. Oh, please.
well, so there's the awareness that this is an issue. The second part is to not either, you know, correct or say no or challenge. You just told me that, you already said that. I mean, that gets you nowhere, and they didn't know that, right? They're not recording that they just said that, right? So they don't know that. Their brain has no idea that they just said that. So they're not doing it on purpose. Nobody's doing anything on purpose. And there are lots of other little things. This is just, you know, one that y'all have brought up as a few people. So there's the awareness that it's part of the brain disease and that they are not aware of it. It's called anosognosia. They don't see the deficit. So that they have a deficit, they don't see the deficit. You see the deficit, you want them to be the same. So, right? Like none of that works. So unfortunately, as the person whose brain is mostly intact, that person has to be, you know, obviously, everybody knows this, right? Like the person that changes and adapts. And so understanding what you need to adapt to doesn't fix it, but it makes it easier. So the beginning of the problem is knowing that that's why they're doing it. Don't try and say, you already told me. Just answer it. But in the bigger picture, this is how to address all of the problems in this disease process, is you need to get them to do something else. Something that's engaging or productive or meaningful, to stop doing that. They're looking for either comfort, they're anxious, they're bored, they're frustrated, any of those things. And so it depends on the questions. So, because we're going to do a whole section on like aggression, anxiety, wandering, clinging, repetitive questions, all of those things. But it's all kind of for the same reason, in that if you lose some of your ability, you lose some of your control. And what is the source most likely of anxiety is loss of control in some way. And so if you're looking at, for instance, I'll take the example of my next door neighbor. I wish she had been able to come. Her mom had a really, really rapid onset and decline recently. And even though she was working from home and her mom lived in the casita like 14 feet away, you know, she was calling her the whole time. And she was very anxious. She had problems with anxiety before, but if you're looking at not the behavior itself, but the source is what I'm talking about learning why. So if we're looking at if somebody is feeling a loss of control, a loss of security, maybe another thing that's I think really hard, and this is not even with just dementia, it's with any kind of like family relationship. You know, you feel guilty, and then they get mad at you, you get mad at them, everybody feels guilty, and then you have some deterioration of closeness, even if it's just like temporary, like for an hour or 15 minutes, or it's a frustrating, like the whole business is frustrating, right? So you can have that perceived sense on their side of, I don't think they like me anymore, and they can't really figure out what they did. And so you've got a lot of unspoken interactions between you all, right? So in terms of all of those different levels of awareness, trying to figure out, okay, well, why are they doing that? So literally, let's see, like Kendall would go to work and get on the phone and get on a meeting, and her mom would be like, where are you, where are you, where are you? So we worked a lot on like trying to find creative ways of, can you have a monitor that you can talk to them through? One of the things that we use down in Florida is a Zoom room where people can go talk to their family member. Also, we have recordings of family members. Hey, I'll be right there, or family pictures, like something that's meaningful, engaging, and soothing and reassuring. Also, I think just being loving, being reassuring, to say, you're safe, everything's good here, we're gonna work on, this, I'll just be gone a minute. There's a whole section called the compassionate lie, where you're having to say, I'll be right back, or he's on the way, like, okay, no, maybe it is 4 hours away, but again, if you're not recording that information, you don't know that information, so why go through it over and over, right? If you can kind of withhold it until the last minute so as not to create anxiety, I think that's one of the things. If somebody's anticipating it and they can't really remember what it is that they're anticipating, they're gonna worry, like, what was it, what time are we going, when's the doctor, what time are you home from work, where are you going, I'm sure you'll know what I'm talking about. So trying to create a connection without friction, and trying to gradually create security, comfort, loving interactions, even when you're frustrated, is one of the question things. Now, the other way we're going to talk about engagement is trying to redirect. Y'all know that word, where you try and, it's not like, oh, I learned the word, I can do it at all. We were in Naples, it was during COVID, there for like a month or two, and Jim he's just a financial guy, and somebody with the, kind of a little bit scary came up, and he was trying, he goes, I tried to redirect him and I just couldn't. And I'm like, well, you gotta try again. But it was cute. So, and then eventually he successfully said, I think I did it. The thing to remember is that if you work separately on, okay, what are the things I could get them interested in or engaged in, or that they like? And have stuff ready, in the sense of, if they're asking you repetitive questions, is there a way to gradually switch the attention to another subject that they like, right? Like, I had a lady I worked with for a couple years, and some days she was lovely, and then some days she would just, not be. And she would start complaining about things and getting more agitated, and I would say, hey, Leona, do you have any siblings? And she would be like, oh, can I tell you about my brothers? Did I ever tell you about them? And I'm like, no. But all we had to do was find the one, like, if you can find something that's sort of, a happy, magical topic, you can use that. And the good thing about not recording memories is you could use it every 5 minutes. It doesn't have to be a new redirection every time. It can be something,
Remember.
Right.
You can use the same redirection every 30 seconds.
Correct.
And they don't remember, so it's.
But if you can get them into something that lasts for longer than 30 seconds, like a photo album or whatever, everybody's different. Some people would like to, sort things. Some people like to do crafts. Some people like to watch planes take off and land. We had one guy, that's the only thing. He tore a gate out of the back of the building to get out, but he would watch the planes for an hour. So, I mean, when you find something that often has to do with their history, their past interests, then that's what we usually try and work it in. Like, some people are oh, I'm waiting for the kids to come home. Though all the kids are, 70. But if you got pictures of the kids and you had the artwork from the kids, and you start making cookies for the kids, they're coming, anything, creative, and there are lots of other problems, and we'll do a whole session on all of those, or whatever y'all want to talk about. If y'all want to come back and like have specific write-in questions, it's all, like I said, it's all super related to just the problems in the brain, and the more you can, picture what's going on and how to support that. So in terms of the vision changes, let's also talk about, there's a couple more areas that are kind of related and super important to what they're going through. The next one is sensory motor, and sensation is what you feel and motor is what you do. That part of your brain is right here, and it works together. You can't just move without feeling. So everybody put your right hand out and point to me. Okay, now close your eyes and put your left hand in the same point to me also without looking, right? So everybody, how did you know where to put it with your eyes closed, right? Because you can feel inside your body where that arm is. So that's sensation and motor. Another thing that you might feel, like walking, that's motor. Tripping over a rock is sensation. It says you better stand up and correct or you're gonna fall. So if you got the fraying cord in the sensory motor area, you might not get the thing fast enough to catch you, or you might not get your motor response fast enough. So that's an area where falls can tie in with the vision loss too, right? So here's another story a friend of mine did, and he should know better. He's a physical therapist I worked with for years. He went to visit his mom in Paris and put his suitcase in the hallway, and she has dementia, and she fell over it and broke her hip the first day he was there. So I know, right? Talk about guilt. So just, now, so we're looking at, there's two different areas of the brain, but we're looking at how they combine to make it difficult for the person. So let's do another sensory motor. Okay, let's say you want to tie your shoe, who has shoes that can be tied, or pick up some change out of your wallet. So everybody put those gloves on. And then we're gonna, if you have tennis shoes on, try tying your shoes. Or you could take your earrings off. Or you could get your driver's license out. Or you could pick up the change you dropped with the gloves on. Mm-hmm. So what's the thing that makes you be able to do those little things in part? Is that you can feel them. So you can feel like that little earring back that's so annoying, or you can feel the clip on your necklace, or you can feel the tennis shoe, you can feel the thing in your wallet or in your purse. Yeah, try it, you can try and tie. God bless them. Yeah, so if you've got like decreased sensation, you're gonna have a little more trouble. So anything like brushing your teeth, buttoning your shirt, getting all the little things of the cosmetics out in the bathroom, or just all day, trying to cut food that's harder to cut, like not something that you can just do with a fork. So if you can't feel everything, you can't do everything. So it's just harder to do stuff, right? So that's a sensory motor interaction. So if you've got damage in that part, which eventually you will, no matter what, you're going to have trouble doing those things. And if you're hot after you've done it, you can take them off. Let's talk about like eating is another thing. Some people stop eating and start losing weight, and a few people eat more. But as eating becomes more difficult, people struggle with that. And when people have cognitive changes and they're struggling with something, they're like, I ain't gonna do it. So it's just like, no, I'm not gonna do it. So if you think about if somebody's having trouble eating, they could either be having trouble with the utensils and the difficulty, like a big piece of lettuce, or like twirling spaghetti or cutting meat. They also could be having trouble swallowing. This is all muscles. Everything in your mouth and your throat is muscles. And if that little motor strip where the tongue works gets affected, they're gonna have trouble managing that food. So it'd be like if you guys think about, if like especially happens if you're by yourself, it doesn't matter. But if you're like at dinner with a group or in front of people and you get a huge bite of steak by accident and you can't chew it, like you're trying and you can't swallow it, and you're like, I'm gonna have to spit it out. So that would be like a similar feeling to somebody who's having motor weakness in their swallowing area. They can't manage that piece of food. If you're trying to make spaghetti twirl around the thing, that's hard for anybody. So, if you think about modifying, like instead of steak, have a hamburger. Instead of spaghetti, have elbow macaroni, or, just sandwiches instead of salads, like stuff that's easier if somebody's struggling. So we're just looking at different ways, like let's say you, all day long, you've got little minor struggles and you're not even aware of them. That can put you in not the best mood. It could make your trigger a little shorter of like something that irritates you, or you might snap at somebody. If I'm like hot and carrying stuff from the car, I'm not very nice to be around. So if I were like couldn't see stuff and find things, I would, maybe be more argumentative or quick to snap. So that's just, another area of the brain where you can have a level of frustration develop. So let's talk about one more, and this is a little more cognitive than physical, and this is the frontal lobes, which are the big part behind your forehead, and this is what's called executive functions. And executive functions are really, really important. They're a little bit more abstract. It's things like initiation. So if anybody sees someone just kind of sitting around and not starting their usual, usual hobbies or activities, or not going out, or just sit, some people just sit and they don't even eat. They're like, can't get that started. That's a fairly late development, but that's initiation, and that's a whole thing that your brain does. We take it for granted because you just want to do something, you start doing it, right? After you initiate it, you have to sequence it and get the steps in order. Like showering, you got to wash your hair, then you got to rinse it. So if you didn't record that you washed it or that you rinsed it, you might go out with the shampoo still in your hair, etc. Just like think of every little level that it could get difficult. After you sequence it, while you're sequencing, you have to stay paying attention to the task, whatever the task is. Are you eating? Are you driving? Are you trying to pay your bills? Are you anything? Then you have to terminate. You have to stop doing it. You have to not keep doing it and keep doing it and keep doing it. So those are all things that your brain does that you're not even aware of. Another one related to that is motivation, which is kind of like initiation, where you have to get started on something. Then problem solving, judgment, organization. Those are another level where people start struggling with things like bills, or again, sequencing, making poor decisions. My poor friend who tripped his mom and broke her hip, his dad also had dementia before that, and they would take the car and he would buy a new car. He had, at that time, had a good deal of money. And then he kept doing that. He would buy a new phone if they took, like if he lost the phone, if he lost the car, it was like, so that's judgment, problem solving. Organization, keeping things sequential. Like first you can follow a calendar, then you can only follow it for a week, and then just for a day, like keeping things in order and keeping things organized, like just chores and errands. Those are not because the person is just lazy or doesn't want to do it. It's just because when you've got the missing red parts, that they're missing red parts and they can't. Now they can keep it together while you can give them like partial support. Like you want to basically, like if I were doing a physical therapy with somebody, I'd maybe have to totally pick them up. Then as they got a little stronger and got a little better, a little less pain, I would back off a little bit more. Then they'd have a walker, then they'd have a cane. So I'm tapering the support. With dementia, it's like kind of the opposite. You're tapering the support up. You don't want to do it for them. You want to do it with them as much as possible and let them stay as independent as possible. One of the other weird things in the frontal lobe is inhibition and personality changes, and things like not saying really mean things to people, like, did you gain another 5 pounds? Or, or just people say sometimes like very ugly things, but their judgment is impaired because of frontal lobe damage. So again, everything we have to do as somebody reacting without dementia is to stop what our natural impulse is and not react in an impulsive way of, if somebody, like if Linda told me I was looking fat today, I'd just pop her back, But, she meant it, so she would deserve it. The person with dementia didn't really mean it. They wouldn't have said it, but they didn't have the brain power to stop it. So, we can't, even though it's hard to not get mad, we can't blame them. So, in terms of frontal lobe things and things you can do, mostly it's like initiating things for people. So that relates back to what we were talking about, engagement and redirection of how to get somebody to do something and keep doing it. So what we want is for them to do it themselves, right? Like, you just go find something to do, right? And well, no, okay, I'll start it for you. Like, here, you like these puzzles, do this. And then go on, keep doing it. It's like they start doing it and then they stop doing it. And so then we have to go back and say, let's do it together, or let me, intervene for longer. So if you recognize that it just requires more not intervention, but support in those areas, things that are like initiation and attention to task to get somebody to keep doing things, it's really worth it in the end, because they're then engaged, their brain is engaged, they're going to be thinking about doing something meaningful, and that is going to help in the big picture of things, of being happier and having less friction with all of you guys. And so one of the things that you all know your family members, and we have to get to know them. And one way we try and help with the interventions that we're targeting specifically to people is what we call a BEST test. And it basically stands for behavior, engagement, stimulation, and temperament. And we are looking at those areas of difficulty and strength in people with cognitive changes. And we're trying to assess both cognition, their physical status, and then like a social history, their social personality. What do you like? What was your work? What's your family like? Like, it could be something too, like, what do you not like? And so we try and work with directing specific activities to people. So sometimes, the robot may come up and say, here, let's listen to this song, or, here, it's time, let's do your game, or whatever the person has shown an interest in. In terms of stimulation, if you're withdrawing and not initiating as much, you don't have as much interaction socially. So we'll have things that are group-oriented and participation-oriented, where people, and some of them have been really cool. When we were first starting, we're like, okay, if we do it remotely, does it matter if it's live or if it's recorded? And then are they going to engage as much as if it's live or if it's through the TV? And so we had a whole, Desiree did a long, it was pizza toppings. They were all like joking at each other and laughing and teasing each other. I mean, and when that wasn't going on, they're just all sitting at a table, like left without an initiation or a trigger to interact. So they just needed like one little support to be able to do something that they normally would have done. As we all engage and do meaningful activities all day. So it's really just more that they've lost that ability to start those things, or to kind of think of them, or maybe they got too difficult. So when we think about engagement, we think about trying to, let's say somebody used to do, does anybody have an example of something that their person used to do and they don't do anymore? Or, I mean, I can make lots. What's something she used to like to do? Okay. So is she mobile, like walking around? I don't know all of your people individually.
She uses not a walker.
Okay, the roller, okay.
Yeah, the roller. Keep forgetting.
Yeah. I mean, so things like what we would try if we knew that, which, we know about a lot of people, and I'm just saying I'm not here every day, so I'm not like a programming person so much, but what I would try is I would say, okay, well, then maybe this person doesn't like to go outside because it's hot, or because the walker, or they're scared they're going to fall, or, or you just don't initiate it. It's like, well, I would really just sit here, it's fine. But could you bring something to them which is related to gardening? Could you get seed packets and talk about, like my dad plants a huge garden and he's having a lot of struggles, but he still looks through the seed catalog and marks everything. Could you get the packets and sort them? Could you make a grid of what, you can online get a grid to print it out, keep trying and putting things in front of them that are related, that are simpler. And sometimes, that's something that they can stay focused on for at least a little while, get like some action going up there.
I have tried, believe me.
So yeah, try, just think of interests and try and get a simpler version. And then also, keeping with them a little bit, you know. And it's like if you, sometimes they won't do it initially, but if you do it about 3 or 4 times, they'll be like, oh yeah, I liked doing that. But you know, you have to, it's like any like changing a habit for any of us, like, all right, I'm gonna, you know, stop eating the cake or whatever. You know, like after, if you make it 2 weeks, you're good, right? But those 2 weeks are like, so you're trying to create a new, and then like a new association with an activity. So something positive, as opposed to, you know, just kind of being bored or being fussed at because we're like, come on, just do it. So anyway, that's kind of the theory of like the engagement stimulation. It relates to the problem. So kind of the wrap up of what we're talking about in general is the brain is affected, different parts run different things, the areas that are affected create the different problems people are having. If we understand those, we can support the parts that are having trouble, and we can be more, and this is not saying people are impatient or intolerant, but more patient and tolerant, because you have to be in a way, but you have to be, the more you know about it and the more you practice it, it becomes more habitual rather than like a sorry, she's going.
It's very frustrating when they start doing it, you know.
Yeah.
But then after a year and a half or 2, you realize that they don't do it on purpose, and you have to.
Yes. Yeah.
Say, okay, then do it. You know, I will clean it. I will clean it again. Okay, I say it again. I say it again.
Yeah.
But it's tiring.
It's very tiring because you don't have, you don't have your independent time to just think or sit or read or whatever. So, you know, again, it's not easy, but there goes a penny. You know, if we can try to find engagement, even if it's still not the same thing over and over, but if it is improving, you know, just their general demeanor and your interaction, then you know, it's certainly worth trying. And that's kind of, you know, our goal with evaluating everybody's social history, and as well as cognitive and physical, to try and get things that are interesting to them.
I guarantee you, she's gonna be your challenge for your life. Guarantee you.
Well, maybe we can try and, you know, help and figure out something that she'll do.
I'm hoping and praying that you guys will be able to do something.
So, yeah. All right, I'm just seeing if we covered all of those pieces. So just kind of the final thing that's related to what you're saying about kind of, you know, acceptance and interaction is a thing called reality orientation versus validation. Do y'all know those terms? Is it hard to do? Yeah. So what do you think makes it hard? Anyone like?
Well, you want people to be in your reality. You have to abandon your reality to go to.
Or, I mean, not, you think abandon or
I feel
expand?
abandoned in my
You
reality.
do, you feel abandoned? I mean, I guess that's very true, yeah. Because there is a loss of like interpersonal connection and regard, and you know, that's, again, it's like a loss to grieve, but it's not intentional, right? Which is hard, but it's still something that is lost. And I mean, I think that's the worst part, where you know, see the personality change, and then that just, it becomes a separation of who that person you expect them to be, and they've always been, for whichever relationship it's been. And I think everybody talks, you know, that's just the hardest part.
But if you go into their reality, then you are sharing it again.
Right, perfectly said. This one. You gotta be nice now.
It make it easy to me that when he does the things over and over, just repeat it to myself. He's not doing it on purpose.
No.
At the beginning, it was very hard for me to accept that. You know?
Yeah.
But now, I said, okay, well, just.
And I wish, yeah,
It's called you going through the grief process.
it is. And you can grieve the loss of somebody well before they are gone. I mean, because it's happening the whole time, you know?
It's like you go back and forth in the stages.
Mm-hmm. And that's all, you know, just normal and part of the process. I know. But like she said, if you can join in with them, and even if it's not your same interaction, you know, at least there's a connection. I know, Linda, what's the name of the lady? The video of the lady with the singing connection?
Naomi Bell.
You want to spell that?
It's F-E-I-L.
Naomi, F-E-I-L.
Yeah, she does some.
NaomiFeil. She has a really neat connection with a lady who's very, very advanced. So not even, you know, she's not having problems of like argumenting, but she's just, you know, almost withdrawn within her shell. And this lady just sits with her and sings with her and gets right in her face, and it's really neat. So it's just kind of, it might be a neat thing to watch for, like, it was a beautiful connection, even though it's not, you know, what you've had, you know, the normal connection you've had throughout your life that you're grieving, but it was a beautiful connection.
It shows that you can connect.
Yeah. So that's and it's just a few minutes long, I think. So, and we could, you know, maybe we'll send the link to that and the ballerina, just as some neat connection stories. And then, again, it's not replacing what's lost, but can you connect in new ways? It's the same person. They're just different because of the difficulties they're having. You know, no different than if they had, you know, had a physical loss where they couldn't, let's say they couldn't leave the house, but they were there cognitively. That would still be a change in relationship. So, but anyway, do y'all have questions about any specific things? Yeah.
Okay, they don't remember, you know, what they ask the same thing over
Yeah.
and over. Why they remember the specific things, and they keep repeating that thing and come back again to that thing. Why they don't forget that?
I know, so
That's what sometimes I say, that you're making it, or maybe you're
so one thing that people, let's say, okay, this is a specific example of one of the directors of one of our buildings in the past. She wasn't like the sweetest person, and I guess she made a new resident mad one day. He couldn't tell you his name, but he knew he did not like her, and if she came near, he would have a fit. I mean, one time, you're like, seriously? So you have language on the left, and then you have retention of things like music and rhythm and prayer and things that are social chit-chat, things that it's more of the emotional side. So you can have retention of an emotional memory. So it's like, make sure they still like you. Your life will be easier. If they start not liking you, it gets harder. So some of it is retaining something that is an emotional aspect. The other thing is, it's if with repetition, people can remember things. Like when they move into a residential place with us, they don't know where the dining room is and what time dinner is, but after 6 months, they sure do. And if you try and, you know, they can't go there that day, it's like, get out of the way. So, you know, repetition and consistency and schedule and basically consistent. So repetition of, for whatever reason it started, I don't know what the...
It's something that is not pleasant.
Okay.
They will remember that, like, he's trying to punish me with that question over and
Yeah.
over. I said, why doesn't forget about that, you know? But he forget like 5 minutes ago.
He forgot something really nice that you did, right?
You know, they forget. I don't know. That is the one thing that is just always.
Yeah, I think, you know, again, like, that's
Really making it up, or
it's an emotional, like,
pretend sometimes.
yeah. Oh, a lot of people say that, but I think that it's the loose connections.
I mean, because it's like they may have this impulse
Mm-hmm,
and to have, like, say they say, I want to go home, or
yeah.
the kids, I'm supposed to pick the kids up from the bus at 4:15 or whatever. So they have this impulse, and that part of their brain might not be affected, right? The impulse to go get the kids. But the fact that they said it to you 40 times, they don't know that. Like,
Yeah.
they don't remember they keep asking you. They just know they need to ask you.
It's
That's
again
how I
kind
see
of,
it.
yeah, like the underlying
Right or not.
dis-ease, like an underlying anxiety or frustration or anger. I mean, also, who do we take anger out on? Like nice people at work or like, you know, your family members, you know, so when you're frustrated, who's gonna still love you? So it is easier, but what were you gonna ask? Or
So
say?
my mom remembers that she's not supposed to drive because the eye doctor told her she's.
Wonderful.
But she doesn't remember that once her eyes are fixed, she still can't drive because the memory care doesn't want her to drive.
Don't tell her that.
Well, what are we gonna do when she gets her eyes fixed
When is that gonna happen?
in a couple months?
Yeah, we don't worry about it.
Oh, we had to sell the car,
Yeah.
but she still wants to drive.
Yeah, so I would definitely, like, we can adjust that one, if y'all wanna come, like, so there's things that people, there's the behaviors, and then there's like they won't take a shower, or they keep trying to take the car, or, you know, there's kind of two more sections of things. Again, it's all related to changes in the brain, but
But
if it's 2 months away, I wouldn't worry about it, I wouldn't even bring it up. For a while,
It'll change.
it'll change,
What they're fixated on now,
yeah.
by the time you
But-
get to the thing you're worried about, it won't matter.
And the
Going on
other,
to the next
here's
thing.
that other thing too, like, in terms of a compassionate life scenario, if you have the eye doctor in on it, and they say, well, we were able to get this much fixed, but we're not sure yet that you're safe, we're gonna wait another 3-month
Lie,
checkup or whatever.
Loving lie, or carry, what do you call it?
Compassionate,
Compassionate lie.
it's, yeah.
And what about like when you're at the memory care, like with, I don't want to hurt her feelings by telling the doctor certain things because it's a new resident, like
Yeah.
2 visits.
I would write it in my chart ahead of time.
Oh, okay.
So, like, if I had some questions for my dad's internist that, again, like, he'll talk about some stuff but not everything, and so I just write it to them ahead of time.
Oh, and then maybe print it out and bring it in case they can't
I do that all the time, and then they'll have, the nurse will call me just to verify whatever it is, and I'm like, this is the scenario when I bring in my mother, so.
Yeah, tell them, like, they don't know this or
You
whatever.
know exactly what
Okay.
I'm gonna say and what their responses should be.
Yep.
Because I don't want to feel like I'm tattletelling on her.
No, of course. You're walking a very fine line, right? You need to keep the relationship, you need to keep them safe, but you also need to not baby them or, you know, yeah.
Is she in the earlier stage?
Yeah,
So then-
because it's not stagnant. You're in a, I mean, depending on where you're at, you are in a go-kart racing down, not like with a child that's racing up. You're at, like, so the things that you're worried about today, they will be in the rear view mirror like that. Odds are. Maybe not. I mean, maybe you'll plateau and hang out there for months or years.
And there are
That's anybody's guess.
lots of other, like, excuses that you can work on in the meantime, you know.
Well, one of the things that we found was that in the state of Texas, you can't get your license renewed or get a new license if you have a diagnosis of dementia. And if you take her to get her, like, if you know and you let her drive.
Great, that's a
with
great point.
diagnosis of dementia, then we would be like.
But then you're the bad guy.
Yeah, no, like,
Yeah, that's
really,
irrational.
Right,
Emotions.
so, but I mean, if she wants to drive, you can just, you know, say the state of Texas won't let you, you know, as another excuse.
yeah.
Blame it on
And-
DMV.
DMV, if you blame it on other people, that's the best thing to do.
She doesn't have a diagnosis.
My cognitive impairment.
Yeah.
Say that's enough.
Yeah.
Just tell her that's enough.
Yeah.
She can't drive.
And the other, does it, any orthopedic problems at all?
Well, she's diabetes and then some neuropathy, but it's not.
'Cause neuropathy is a good one because you can't press, you know, you've got speed and reaction time problems, and then some orthopedic problems like neck range of motion, arthritis, some doctors will work with you on that too. I mean, people understand that like everybody's not compliant with safety recommendations.
But you don't think she's safe to drive? Oh, no.
Yeah. When I was researching something, in England and Scotland, the doctors are legally liable for any accident a person under their care has with dementia, and so they're like, no. Like
The thing about, the thing you said about reality orientation versus validation,
Yeah.
is that relevant in this situation? Like,
Yeah.
do they just
I mean,
go ahead and say, oh, we'll talk about that? I mean, in other words, do they have to continually remind her that she can't drive?
no, not if she remembers.
No, it's only when well, sometimes we'll be driving, she's like, do you want me to take over? You know, you look like you're tired, so why don't I drive for you? If you ever need a break, just let me know. You know, I can drive.
Yeah.
And then like, she's always wanting to know roller skating, but she should not roller skate.
Oh God. I shouldn't roller skate.
So I guess what you're saying is,
We pass it every day.
You got to change your route. Is that possible?
it's right there on the,
Well,
it's right there.
Yeah.
it would be
Obvious.
a long way.
Well,
But I mean, is she at a point where you can just say, oh, we'll do
Thank
that
you for
next
coming.
weekend? Or she'll
Yeah.
already know that you can?
Yeah.
Bye.
yeah, I think, I mean, right now, quote, reality orientation isn't like a terrible thing in the sense that she's accepting of the cataracts being real. Now you're going to, when it becomes another issue, then you're not going to do reality orientation. You're choosing to do something, but more sneaking. Not really validation, just sneaking, but.
I find it hard when she will say, oh, well, I want to call my parents who are deceased, and
Yeah.
continuously asks. So I'm like, okay, well, the number's at home. Well, when we get there.
Yeah, delay
Or,
tactics
oh,
are
I
good.
can't find the number, or oh, we just talked to them. And it's hard for me to
Yeah.
know that she can't remember that they're not there.
Don't let that be hard for you. So you got the wires and two of them frayed and then they went back together, but they're the wrong ones. Okay, so she's got a signal and it's real, but it's just inaccurate. So it's not, don't worry about her, and if she doesn't know that they're not alive. So you shouldn't worry about that. What would make her feel bad is if you said, oh no, don't you remember they passed last year or whatever. So, you wouldn't do that. You could instead maybe, so if you, again, like we were talking earlier, like what's the underlying feeling that's making them do it? Why are they anxious? They miss their parents, they're sad, or they're lonely, or like, I love my mom and dad and I want to call them. Like that's a normal thing. So something that people say that they use fairly often is just start talking to them about the parents. So you're providing like the same feeling, like you're connecting with them about the parents, they're reminiscing, they're talking about, well, how did they meet again? And how long were they married before you were born? And, la la la, whatever is meaningful to them in that. So you've still got that connection with your grandparents and her parents, and then she gets the reward she was looking for. It's just, you have to find it a different way than calling them. So that would be, one technique. Or if you're at home, have a scrapbook, like get the pictures out. So this is what I'm saying, like redirection of that is still, you're just getting contact with the parents, but through a different mechanism.
And as they get younger, they might be looking for younger versions of their parents. Like what are their parents
Yeah.
Yeah.
One more thing. She loves puzzles, but they're more difficult now because it's harder for her to figure out which pieces go together.
Mm-hmm.
Is it better to try larger
Yes.
pieces
Mhm.
or just
Definitely.
puzzles?
No, I would first try larger pieces.
Okay.
Because again, you're like, the same activity that they like, but a little bit easier.
Yeah.
Because you're like still in the part where she's still at least trying, as opposed to just, gave it up, right? So, yeah, I would just, try some that are bigger. It could also often be the same one, right? If they're successful with one, break it up, put it away, bring it right back. There's benefits and drawbacks to not recording memories, right? So, so you could, find one or two, and because you want success, right? You want them to be happy and successful, and so you modify the activity and modify your input level to let them be successful and help them be successful. So, yeah, you're
My
welcome.
daughter had a puzzle the other week, and when you took the pieces out, it had the same picture, like in black, gray, and white under.
Oh.
So you can notice where the moose goes.
That's great. Look for one of those.
Yeah, that's cool.
You could maybe even look up something like dementia-friendly puzzles.
Yeah.
Stuff like that's because that the shape is more abstract than the visual picture, right? I mean, like if you can match the balloon, and the balloon is easier than matching the outline.
Or if they still know their number, you can number the piece and remember where it goes.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Good question. See, it's like everybody has kind of the same, structural problems and issues. It's helpful for y'all to
Well, here's
talk
one.
about. What?
So for people who know that they have dementia,
Mhm.
like my husband Johnny here, like how much information is useful when you're in the moderate stages and you know that this is what's happening in your life?
I think that's like the hardest question. Do you have an input?